What's up, guys? Welcome into another episode of the Wolverine Live Recruiting Show. Going solo today. No Zach Libby. So this is the free Ask Your Questions show. So make sure to get in the chat, participate in the recruiting discussion. Obviously, a lot going on coming out of a massive official visit weekend. This weekend's last weekend was a massive official visit weekend. A lot of targets coming in. This weekend is Victor's weekend. A ton of commits coming in, a handful of key targets. So I'm sure we have a lot to talk about tonight. Before we do, I want to remind you guys to subscribe to the Wolverine.com today. If you're not a Wolverine.com subscriber and enjoy the YouTube shows, head over to the website and sign up right now for $1 for 3 months. That gets you premium insider recruiting information, team information, basketball recruiting, NIL, transfer portal, and so much more. Plus, you get to be part of a great message board community over on the Fort with more than 8,000 individual unique users. Come join the fan discussion, be part of the biggest message board community around, and get all your intel coming out of official visit season. And if you want to subscribe for the year, get through football season, should be a special football season. We also have another deal, $49.99, so half off for the entire year. And that gets you obviously through the next couple of official visit weekends and football season. Also, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That is completely free. And if you want to skip the line tonight, I'm sure we'll have plenty of people joining in and asking questions. You can hit that donate button. That super chat money goes directly to our travel budget so I can travel across the country. All right, let's go to our first question. It comes from Jeff M, who I think is a new user joining these shows. So shout out to Jeff M. Haven't seen his name before. Always great to get new guys in asking questions. Considering Michigan's class of 2024 verbal recruits and those most likely to commit in the future, which 5 or 6 do you think will have the best careers at Michigan? And do you have a sleeper pick? Okay, so that's a good question early on. So let's keep the number to 5. I think Blake Frazier is a 100% bet to have a great career at Michigan. I mean, obviously, his father, Steve, is an ex-Wolverine, and, Blake kind of grew up bleeding maize and blue. He grew up watching Michigan. He's been around the program. He knows what it means to be a Michigan man. On top of that, he's just a really good player. Aside from him being a legacy recruit, it's not like they recruited Blake just because he was the son of a Michigan Wolverine. He's a really, really good player. The number 14 offensive tackle in the country, the number 177 overall recruit nationally. I have him ranked a little higher than that. And you look at his offer list too, and it was really impressive. Even on the On3 recruiting prediction machine, you see some of the schools that finished behind Michigan, Texas, Clemson, Texas A&M. All those schools really wanted him. I think he's everything you want at the right tackle position with the flexibility to slide inside if needed. But I would bank on Blake Frazier having a great career. He's one of the more vocal leaders of the class. And like I said, just being a highly touted legacy, I think that goes a long way at a school like Michigan. So Blake Frazier would be one. Jordan Marshall is obviously the no-brainer, has an argument to be one of the best recruits in the class. Just got a bump in the industry rankings yesterday, I believe, is back in the top 100. Jordan Marshall, arguably the best win of the entire recruiting cycle. He's a kid that picked Michigan over Ohio State. He has the talent and skill set to come in and be the bell cow as a true freshman. I mean, Blake Corum's not going to be here. If Donovan Edwards leaves early, I think Jordan Marshall can start as a true freshman. I think he's clearly a top 100 back. It seems like only 2 of the 4 sites actually have him ranked inside the top 100, but I feel very high on Jordan Marshall, really confident in his abilities. And like I said, just a big win in the state of Ohio, beating out Ohio State. So Jordan Marshall is a safe bet. We'll get back to this question. We actually have a big super chat coming in from Nick, and we'll bounce back to you, Jeff. But Nick says, Empower equals Stephen Ross. Where are your $1 million at, bro? How are you feeling about Boo Carter? Seems like Michigan did a really good job this last weekend with him and Bryce West. So yeah, I mean, first of all, Empower is Michigan's new NIL mentorship, internship um, thing that they're launching out. They're making a really hard push for it. Obviously, they had a big event out in Chicago yesterday. So I think that'll definitely help with the recruiting side of things. I'll actually have a story out tomorrow on recruits and parents talking about the Empower presentation. That was definitely a big sell on the official visit. And speaking of NIL, how am I feeling about Boo Carter? Man, coming into this weekend's official visit, I felt like Tennessee had the lead. No surprise, they're 92.2% favorites on the On3 recruiting prediction machine. However, this weekend was an absolute home run. Steve Clinkscale did a fantastic job with Boo Carter. He bonded really well with some of the commits on campus, including close friend Jacob Oden. They've played Club 7-on-7 together throughout the offseason. So I feel like Michigan made it a true 50-50 battle heading into this weekend's decision. Remember, he is set to announce his commitment on Saturday. With that said, he was back in Knoxville today for another visit with Tennessee. Now, there isn't much else that Tennessee can really show him. They were the first school to offer him, they were the home state school, and that's a big reason they're really high on his list. At the same time, I think another reason is obviously Tennessee is one of those NIL friendly schools. I think they're making that pitch pretty hard as well. Michigan has Empower and is getting it rolling, and that's great. But I think Tennessee, the Tennessees, the Miamis, the Oregons of the world are playing a little bit different of a game. So I'm interested to see what comes out of this Wednesday visit with Tennessee. I think I'm a little more pessimistic than I was on Sunday, but I'm waiting to see what else we get out of Wednesday's trip to Knoxville. Let's go back to Jeff M. And he was asking about 5 guys that I think will have the best careers at Michigan that are either commits or really strong leans. So right now I've said Blake Frazier. I've said Jordan Marshall. I have to say Brady Prescorn as well. The way Michigan turns out tight ends, man, I mean, Brady Prescorn has a chance to be that next great one. I was really high on Colston Loveland a couple of cycles ago. I'm even higher on Brady Prescorn. I had a chance to see him in game as an underclassman. He was really impressive, even for a run-heavy team. He was such a valuable weapon in the pass game. He flexes out a lot. He's a complete mismatch in the red zone, but being in a run-heavy offense, he's very willing to block. I think he's a guy that can play in line. You can split him out wide. He's 6'6", 225 pounds with the frame to carry some really good weight. The thing about Prescorn is I think a lot of people forget about him because he never does interviews. He doesn't do any camps. He doesn't do anything that is not related to his high school football team. He's an old-fashioned throwback recruit. But I think a lot of people need to realize that, Prescorn's arguably the best recruit in the state of Michigan this year. There was no big 5-star like a Dante Moore or a Will Johnson, but I think Brady Prescorn is the best of this year's bunch in state. So it was a big win for the Wolverines, beating out Michigan State, Penn State, Notre Dame, and more. So those 3 definitely. I'm going to go with a lean. I'm going to go with a guy that's not in the class right now, but has been, obviously projected to go to Michigan, and that's Aaron Childs, on 300 linebacker out of Only Good Counsel. I think that Childs has a chance to step right in where Junior Colston leaves off. He's a very similar type of linebacker. I've made that comparison for about a year now. He's everything you want from a scheme fit standpoint with what Jesse Minter runs. He can get sideline to sideline. He's comfortable in pass coverage. He can fill gaps in a hurry. When you think Aaron Childs, just picture Junior Colson. I mean, pretty much the exact same type of player. Ranked just outside the top 100 on the industry ranking, largely due to On3 having him outside the top 200, which is, in my opinion, not a very good ranking. I would have Childs a clear top 100 guy, even a 5-star guy. I think he, if he does commit to Michigan, he would be the best recruit in the class. So I'm really, really excited about Aaron Childs and what he brings to the table. I think he's definitely going to be one of those guys that has a great career at Michigan. And then lastly, I'm doing this off the top of my head, so I'm sure I missed somebody, but the guy that pops up immediately is Andrew Sprague. Going back to the offensive line, we mentioned Blake Frazier, but I think the best offensive lineman out of the 5 commits is actually Andrew Sprague. Just towering left tackle at 6'8", 275 pounds. Reminds me a lot of Andrew Gentry when Andrew Gentry was coming out of high school. I know Gentry hasn't made a big impact at Michigan yet because he's coming off a 2-year mission trip, but Gentry was a really highly touted recruit, much like Andrew Sprague. I think Sprague is a guy that, not a lot of people have been able to see out in Kansas City. I think the national media got their first look at him this offseason at the Under Armour camp in Kansas City. I think by the time his senior year comes to an end, he's going to be a top 100 recruit. He has a fantastic relationship with Sharon Moore, who obviously does a great job of developing offensive linemen. When you look at what Ben Herbert does in the strength and conditioning program, Andrew Sprague is the towering tackle you want to mold. And I think with more coaching and with Herbert developing in the strength and conditioning program, Andrew Sprague's going to be a dude at Michigan for sure. And if I have a sleeper pick, if Michigan picks up Devin Baxter, who's making his official visit this weekend, that dude would for sure be my sleeper pick. 4-star edge out of Maryland. Man, he has all the athletic ability in the world. He's super long. He's extremely quick off the edge. He has great brute strength, despite not being at a great high school program where they really hone in on that. And that's the thing with Baxter is he just hasn't been coached up. He's as raw as you can get, but the upside is so exciting. That's why they've made Baxter such a high priority this cycle. Let's go on to our next question from Justin Courtney. And he says, any news on Darian Mayo and Aaron Childs? So Childs coming in June 23rd. So is Darian Mayo. Both of those guys will be on campus next weekend. So not this weekend for Victor's weekend, but the weekend of the 23rd. Starting off with Aaron Childs, who I obviously just talked about. Still feel like he's a Michigan lean. Still like my prediction. Florida, Maryland are the 2 schools really trying to pry him away. But I haven't been too concerned. Like I said, I really like where Michigan stands. I think they've done a fantastic job of selling him on being a scheme fit. He fits the program both on and off the field. That's why I said he's a safe bet to have a great career at Michigan. So even though he's not in the class, I really like where Michigan stands. I think he'll end up in the class either, later this month after his OV or sometime in early July. That's his decision timeline right now. Darian Mayo, I know there was a commit or a prediction put in for Darian Mayo to land at Michigan, and Mayo is a top 100 edge. Did he drop in the industry ranking? I'm not sure. He's a top 100 edge on 3. But yeah, I mean, I do like where Michigan stands, but I'm not sure I would have put in a prediction. So he's top 100 on 3, but outside the top 150 on the industry ranking. Man, 24/7 is really that's a garbage ranking for Mayo. A 3-star? Come on. He's the best edge on the board. I do think Darian Mayo is the best edge on the board. He's a top priority for the Wolverines. Like I said, Michigan's in a good spot. I'm not close to putting in a prediction like our national analyst Chad Simmons did. I want to see how the official visit goes. He went out to Clemson the first weekend, and things went really well there. I don't think a lot of people are talking about Clemson enough. I think they're a big factor in this recruitment. He made his official visit to Ohio State. Obviously, they've been a longtime player in his recruitment. USC's coming up, and I'm not too concerned about USC. Really, I think it's a 3-team race between Michigan, Ohio State, and Clemson, and it comes down to the official visits. Luckily for Michigan, it has the last official visit, so I think they'll have an opportunity to win him over. Justin Courtney comes back with another question, and he says, how's Michigan looking with Gatlin Bair? So Gatlin Bair also set to make his official visit on June 23rd. Really like where Michigan stands with Bair, even though he hasn't visited. He has Michigan in that top group. You see, Nebraska has the lead on the On3 recruiting prediction machine. That's because he's been there before. He had a really strong visit there. But I think Michigan's going to knock it out of the park. They saw this dude multiple times during the spring evaluation period. Jay Harbaugh was out there. Ron Bellamy was out there. They have a long-standing relationship with his high school coach, Coach Anderson, who coached Colston Loveland. Colston Loveland is obviously a fellow Idaho native and will be heavily involved in the recruitment of Bair, especially when he's on campus. And he's already been involved in the recruitment of Bair. Idaho's kind of an obscure state. So having a guy like Loveland that can relate to him is definitely positive. Another big weapon for Michigan in this recruitment is Andrew Gentry. As I mentioned earlier in the show, Andrew Gentry went on a 2-year mission. He is of Mormon faith. So is Gatlin Bair. In fact, Bair is preparing to take his own 2-year mission. So having a guy on the roster that chose to go to Michigan that already had the mission trip, that shares the same faith, I think that'll be huge. And just pitching him on being that guy that can open up the offense. I mean, he has unreal speed. He's ran in the 10-2s in the 100 meter. Gatlin Bair would finally be that guy. Michigan was so close to getting that speedster that can be a game changer on the outside when Xavier Worthy signed and eventually entered the transfer portal. Gatlin Bair is the closest thing to Xavier Worthy, that as far as receivers that they've recruited over the last couple of years. So, Bair would be a tremendous win. I think Michigan will really, really skyrocket up this On3 recruiting prediction machine after his official visit. All right, guys, it looks like we have a few more questions coming in. Before we answer them, I want to bring you a message from one of our sponsors. We want to take a moment to shout out the longtime partner of the Wolverine, Lewis Jewelers. Simple question, guys. Have you taken care of the gift for that special woman in your life? If the answer is no, then great news. Lewis Jewelers can help. It's stress-free and it's easy working with one of their non-commissioned expert trusted advisors finding that perfect diamond. Stop by today, guys, and take care of the wives, mothers, and grandmothers in your life. And if you don't care about a special woman in your life and you just want to be selfish, you can get yourself a great, piece of jewelry for yourself. Get yourself a gold dog tag. You can see the banner here. That gold dog tag has that black M on it. Get that for yourself. If you're not about the women, but if you are a woman and you don't care about men, then you can get yourself some jewelry. So, shout out to the women that have joined us. Anyway, Lewis Jewelers is your diamond store and so much more since 1921. Visit them at their new location, 300 South Maple Road, Ann Arbor, or online at lewisjewelers.com. That's lewisjewelers.com, where Ann Arbor gets engaged. All right, let's get back to the questions. And it's Go Blue 81. And he says, how are we looking for Andre Evans and Zaquan Patterson at this point? I put in a prediction for Andre Evans to end up at LSU. He is making his decision on Friday, so not likely to land at Michigan. You see the On3 recruiting prediction machine has him at 97.8%. He was set to be on campus for an official visit at Michigan this weekend. That is no longer happening. All right, Zaquan Patterson, as I reported this week, is making his unofficial visit. So not an official visit. He's making an unofficial visit on June 23rd. Zaquan, as you see here, top 100 recruit out of South Florida, the number 72 overall prospect in the country. Zaquan at 6'1", 106 or 185 pounds. He's thick. He's definitely not 165. 185 pounds. Man, he's a truck. He will absolutely smack you. He's extremely physical. He's a perfect fit for that, Big Ten conference, physical style football. I think Michigan would do wonders with a guy like Zaquan Patterson. Right now, I think it's a Miami-Michigan battle. I think it's interesting that he's making an unofficial visit to Michigan. He'll have a chance to spend multiple days on campus. His mother's going to come up with him. He will also have a chance to spend time with good friend Chris Ewald, who is a top 100 recruit who is already committed to Michigan in the 2025 recruiting class. They are extremely close, so Ewald will be recruiting him all weekend. Steve Klinksko is the area recruiter in South Florida. He also happens to be Michigan's co-defensive coordinator and cornerbacks coach, so he's going to be with Patterson all weekend long. Denard Robinson, we don't talk about a ton, but obviously he's a South Florida guy, and he will be extremely involved in the recruitment of Patterson once Patterson makes his way to campus. Miami has a big lead on the On3 recruiting prediction machine. I would say that's fair. The Hurricanes have done a fantastic job with him. It's the home state school. It's right down the road from him. At the same time, I think Michigan has a fair shot here. I do think the Wolverines will have a chance to really move the needle on the unofficial visit. He's been to Ann Arbor a couple of times in the past, so it's nothing new. But getting him that official visit experience while on an unofficial visit, plus having Mom on board and Ewald on campus with him, again, I think all of that will help. So Michigan right up there, right behind Miami, going into a critical visit next weekend. Let's go to Go Blue 81, and he says, it looks like Brian Robinson's dad said he will move his commitment date up. Is that good or bad for Michigan? It's a sensitive situation right now with Brian Robinson. You see Kentucky has the lead on the On3 recruiting prediction machine. I'll just say this when it comes to Brian Robinson. If Brian wants to keep taking his time, I think Michigan is comfortable with the edge board. I think it's comfortable with the edge targets it has. Right now I feel good about my predictions when it comes to Dominic Nichols, Devin Baxter, Elias Rudolph, and Jacob Smith. So, I could easily see all those guys pulling the trigger before Brian Robinson does. That's all I really want to say on it right now. Let's go ahead and go down to the turnaround with Terrence and Patrice Graham. He says, why did Jaden Davis drop to a 4-star? And do you think by the end of his senior season, he will return to a 5-star? So he dropped to a 4-star on the industry ranking and on the 24/7 composite, I believe, because Rivals updated its ranking and dropped Jaden Davis 10 spots. So that moved him down to a 4-star. Rivals did keep him as a 5-star, and 24/7 has him as a 5-star. Both ESPN and On3 have him as a 4-star. Look, you guys know my feelings on Jaden Davis. I think he has a really high floor, but a really low ceiling. So I don't think he'll return to 5-star status. All the sites have gradually dropped him. Well, except for On3, they dramatically dropped him. I think On3 had him at 67 at one point. So they were never super high on Davis. I think that's the highest they had him ranked. And now he's 115. But like 24/7 dropped him like 10 spots. ESPN's dropped him like 10 spots. Rivals dropped him 10 spots, which I said would happen after his junior season. He just hasn't shown a lot of progression. He's limited physically, 6'1.5", 190 pounds. Usually you'd like to see that coupled with great athleticism. Being a playmaker with your legs is something that makes short quarterbacks more safe takes as well and gives them more of a ceiling to couple with that. But Jaden Davis isn't really a threat with his legs. I mean, he's not a statue. He's not like Cade McNamara, but he's certainly not a guy that defenses need to respect as a run threat. He's more of a pure pocket passer. He has adequate arm strength, but not elite arm strength. He's improved his accuracy, but still has a bit of control issues. Brings the ball low in his throwing motion, so that's something that's been a knock as of late. With all that said, I feel like I'm making it sound bad. I mean, he is one of the better quarterbacks in a cycle that's very, very weak at the position. So that's kind of why he dropped. We have a big super chat coming down from Devon Robinson, and he says, seems like Michigan will go into the season with 20 to 25 commits. Not used to that. Any recruits that they'll save their official visit for the season? And thanks for the longer show yesterday. For sure. So they'll definitely hit 20 commits. I would say they hit 20 commits before the end of the week. So they'll hit 20 commits. They might get up to 25. Definitely interesting. I mean, that's the first time I've, really had that experience having this big of a class, even this early into June. So definitely interesting. Any recruits they'll save their official visit for the season. Feel like everybody's using summer OVs. I just mentioned Zaquan Patterson coming in on an unofficial visit. There's some buzz that he could move up his timeline to August. So, if he does, obviously he wouldn't make an official visit, but he initially planned to take it into December. And if he does that, then, Zaquan could use his official visit for the season. So, like I said, this 23rd visit next weekend is an unofficial visit. So, an official visit could occur during the season for sure. But outside of that, I mean, like I said, most of the targets have already made their official visit this summer. And there's already so many commits. So that's kind of where things stand with that. So appreciate you, Devon, coming in with your super chat. Let's get back to order of the line. JL, he says, EJ, where's Aaron Scott here in the 937 and really want him to go blue? Well, he will be in Ann Arbor this weekend. He's coming off an official visit to Oregon. I wrote earlier today, look, Oregon tried to make it interesting. That was his childhood dream school, but I think distance is going to be a factor there. So I still think this is a Michigan-Ohio State battle. We talked about Aaron Scott on the show last night. Look, I do think Ohio State probably has the lead right now. They have the lead on the On3 recruiting prediction machine. All the predictions across all the networks are in for the Buckeyes, but I wouldn't be surprised if Michigan takes the lead this weekend. He's coming in on Victor's weekend, so he'll have a chance to really bond with the commits. He's already established really good friendships with guys like Jacob Oden and Luke Hamilton and Ben Roebuck and Jordan Marshall. Jordan Marshall, I think, opened the door for others in Ohio that are highly touted to spurn the Buckeyes and pick Michigan. So, and Steve Klinkscale has just done a fantastic job, area recruiter and obviously position recruiter as well. So I think Michigan will have every opportunity in the world to take the lead this weekend, and I think they will. I think coming out of this weekend, we're going to report nothing but optimism with Aaron Scott. But, and there's a big but, Ohio State gets him for that last official visit on June 23rd. He'll be there, with Bryce West and some other big names. So, yeah, I think, I'm not worried about Michigan and its official visit. They're going to hit a home run. They're going to knock it out of the park. We're going to be really hyping up Aaron Scott after the weekend. But we have to remember that Ohio State gets that last OV, and that's really scary. So I think we'll know a lot more about Aaron Scott after the Ohio State official visit on the 23rd. Let's go down to Redneck Edits, and he says, what about Jaden Davis for the 2024 season? So as far as Michigan's quarterback situation, I don't know. I mean, it really depends on if JJ McCarthy stays or not. If JJ stays, obviously he'll start. You have some guys on the roster that are intriguing, whether it's Davis Warren or or Alex Orji, who offers all the athletic potential in the world. They could obviously hit the transfer portal. I don't think you really want a true freshman starting at quarterback. The thing about Jaden Davis, and I'm not super high on him in terms of having him as a 4-star, but the strengths that Jaden Davis brings to the table would allow him to play early if needed because, one, he processes things very quickly. He's a great student of the game. He has a high football IQ. He's a great manager of the offense. With the talent that Michigan has around him, I think all he would need to do is be Cade-esque, and I think he's more than capable of being Cade-esque, even as an underclassman. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I would see the quarterback situation. I would definitely think Michigan hits the portal for a guy as opposed to throwing Jaden Davis in to the fire. We have about 1 minute left, and we have another question from Seth Scott, and he says, this season, do you see an air raid to complement the run game? You read some, hear some, but is it true? Well, I only cover recruiting, Seth, but, I know Jim Harbaugh obviously made more 50-50 comments. I think with JJ's arm talent, obviously you have reason to open up the offense. So I think you'll see them pass the ball a little bit more. I think air raid is going a little too crazy. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on it is they will pass the ball a little bit more, but definitely not air raid. Let's go down to Mr. Scott 4673. And he says, haven't heard anything on King Joseph Edwards. Is Michigan still recruiting him? No. So King Joseph, highly touted edge out of Georgia, visited Michigan last year. They kind of moved on from him a couple months ago. They're happy with the guys coming in. And so if you missed our show yesterday, guys, just a really quick official visit preview, I guess. And you see King Joseph Edwards here on the profile. It looks like he's predicted to go to Georgia, but yeah, Michigan not really involved in that race at all. But we are going into official visits this weekend. We didn't even really get any questions on the official visitors this weekend, but I know there's a lot of commits, so maybe fans aren't as excited for this weekend as last weekend. I feel like we had a ton more questions on last weekend's show, but this weekend has some top targets. Obviously, we talked about Aaron Scott already. Michael Uini is the thumbnail here on 300 offensive linemen out of Texas. Man, he's a guy that I really, really love. I think Michigan can make a move there as a dark horse candidate. There is no true leader in the recruitment of Michael Uini. You look at the on-3 prediction machine, and everybody's pretty even. So I do think Michigan can make a major move this weekend. I know that Bennett Warren is touted as that guy to take the sixth offensive lineman spot, or predicted to be the guy that takes that sixth offensive line spot. But don't be surprised if Michigan actually moves up the list for Uini. Like I said, it's a wide open race. Michigan can obviously sell offensive line production with back-to-back Joe Moore awards. So I really, really like where the Wolverines stand with Michael Uini. They're in that top 5, and I think anything can happen on this official visit. And the other thing to note with Michael Uini is he's not a native Texan. He was born in the Pacific Northwest. He moved to Georgia, then moved to Texas. So he's more than willing to leave his home state. So it's not like he's just a Texas lock or anything. This one is a really, really wide open race. Like I said, I mean, this is a recruitment that Michigan is capable of winning, and we're just not talking a lot about him right now because the focus has been on Bennett Warren, but he is definitely a guy to know. Let's answer a few of these other questions and then get out of here. We have Mr. Scott 4673. Haven't heard any. Oh, we already answered that one. Seth Scott says, I was listening that Roberson could be a Kentucky lean now. That's Brian Robinson. And yeah, there's some moving parts on the edge board. There's still a path for Brian Robinson to end up at Michigan, but you look at the predictions, man. I mean, Devin Baxter, Jacob Smith, Dominic Nichols, Elias Rudolph. If all 4 of those guys end up in the class, then, I don't really see Robinson ending up here. So he did make his OV to Kentucky over the weekend. I know a lot of you guys want more details on Brian Robinson. Like I said earlier, it's a sensitive situation, so I can't really expand too much on it, but just know Michigan's comfortable with the edge board, and it'll play out the way it plays out. Go Blue 81 says, do we get Uini or Warren? Yeah, man. I mean, I think the safe bet is Bennett Warren. But like I just said, I think Michael Uini is a true dark horse candidate. I wanted to dedicate that. I know there was no question about him, but he was the thumbnail. So I wanted to dedicate a little bit of time to him because nobody's talking about Michael Uini. There's no leader there. He just made official visits to Clemson and Florida. Neither of them took the lead. Like I said, he's not a native Texan. Texas isn't even getting an official visit. They're in his top 6, but they're not getting an OV. The door is wide open for Michael Uini. He's been on campus before. He was there in the winter. He's used to the cold, being a Pacific Northwest guy. He's not afraid of the cold. That's something he reiterated to me when he went out to see him. But Michael Uini is a top dude. I have Michael Uini graded higher than I have Bennett Warren. He's wanted by all the top dogs. Alabama wants him. Clemson wants him. Florida wants him. Georgia's been involved in this recruitment too. He's an elite level offensive lineman. And I think he's someone we need to talk a lot more about for sure. And it's first come, first serve for that 6th offensive line spot. Michigan Football and Hockey says, where's Michigan Campbell at? I don't really even know what that question means, but Kirk Campbell was on campus today at Michigan's mini camp, and he did offer 4-star 2025 quarterback Tavian St. Clair, who is supposed to be Ohio's top quarterback target for next cycle. So that's definitely interesting. Let's go down to our last question so we can get out of here. And that's Seth Scott. Could Michigan have more of a chance at Ryan Wingo and Bryce West? I think it's going to be tough with both. I think maybe, if I had to say who they have a better shot at right now, I don't even know. I couldn't even answer that. I think Bryce West is an Ohio State lean. I have him predicted to end up with the Buckeyes. Like I said earlier, he's officially visiting there on June 23rd. So it's really tough to pull a Glenville kid out of Ohio. So I think he'll end up at Ohio State. Ryan Wingo, even coming out of the OV, I don't feel good about Michigan's chances, but at least I got an OV. And if Ryan Wingo takes it into the season, then that could give Michigan more of a chance. So the reason why I've kind of balked on answering who Michigan has a better chance with, Bryce West or Ryan Wingo, is because Bryce West probably commits in the next few weeks. Ryan Wingo potentially takes it into the season. So it gives Michigan a better chance. It gives them an opportunity to get him back on campus. And if Jim Harbaugh is right, if they do open it up a little bit more, if there is more of a pass game, then that could definitely impress Ryan Wingo. But yeah, I do think Georgia's the heavy leader right now. That recruitment's changed a little bit. The leaders on the On3 recruiting prediction machine, but I would give Georgia the advantage for Ryan Wingo. All right, guys, appreciate y'all for joining us tonight. Make sure to subscribe to the Wolverine.com today for just $1 for 3 months or $49.99 for the year. Like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're almost at 22,000 subscribers, so make sure to help us meet that goal. And liking this video helps other Michigan fans get in the chat so we can have better shows. Appreciate you guys for joining us tonight, and lock in for that OV coverage.